Hello! In this video, we are going to go over the important points to Chapter 10 of our textbooks. Up on the screen, I'm in Week 1, and this is under assignment number 3. Here, we have this folder with all of the pages that you need for Chapter 10 scanned. So first, before watching this video, go read those on your own, okay? And now we're going to go over the PowerPoint that talks about the important points from those pages. This link here is just to the PowerPoint. You can click on it, scroll to the bottom, and download the PowerPoint, and it will pop up like this. There might be a yellow bar and it'll say Enable Editing, and you can just click on Enable Editing. Alright, so as we go through this, I want you to take notes on a separate piece of paper. The more that we write down, the more that we remember what we're reading and what we're supposed to remember from the chapter. Okay, so take notes as we go along. If you have to pause the video, go ahead and do that. Alright, so we're talking about Chapter 10, Studying College Textbooks. Alright, and so in order to do this, they talked about a term called the study reading process. Now on the PowerPoint, I'll put a lot of terms in red, and you will see terms as well on the textbook pages in the margins with definitions. I would highly suggest that you start getting into the habit of getting index cards. So you know what index cards are. They're these things, okay? So you'll put the term on one side, and then on the other side you put the definition. And so when you're done, then you'll have a nice stack of flashcards that can help you study for the chapter test. And then if you do that for each chapter, you're going to have a really nice stack of review cards for when you have to study for the midterm exam, and then further on when you have to study for the final exam. When we would be in a normal face-to-face classroom all through the semester, I would have students for extra credit take their review guide for each chapter, and you have one here for Chapter 10. I would have them take each question, put the question on one side and the answer on the other, and that way it was a way for them to study for that chapter test. And for a number of students, they did that for every single chapter, and so at the end of the semester they had a really nice stack of flashcards to help them study with. So that's a great way as you go through here to remember and learn these terms and definitions. So when you take a look at a regular textbook, very much similar, that looks like our Chapter 10 textbook page, you want to approach it with a certain process. And here's the thing, you don't have time to constantly reread a section or a chapter of a book all the time when you have to go back and relook at the information. So your time is valuable, and it needs to be as productive as possible. So they talked about in this chapter the study reading process. It consists of 3 steps of preparing to read, asking and answering questions as you read, and reviewing by rehearsing the answers to your questions. Okay? So if you do these steps, it's going to help you remember and retain the information that much better so that you can do better on assignments, on your tests, on your exams, and you can pass the course. So the first step here in the study reading process, preparing to read, has 3 steps all its own. Okay? So when you prepare to read, you're going to preview the material, you're going to assess your prior knowledge, and you're going to plan your reading and study time. So when we preview to read material, we're looking to determine the topic, how the section is organized best. And so some of the things that we can look for is the title, introduction. We can look for headings and subheadings of a section. We can look for words in print. We can look at visuals and graphics, and we can look for study guide questions and summary. If you've ever read a biography or an autobiography, usually in the middle of that book, there's those nice glossy pages with photos. And so anytime I pick up one of those to read, that's exactly what I go to first. I preview all of that material because I want to see what that person looked like throughout life. All right. So in the first step, we're preparing to read. The first thing we need to do is preview the material. Then in the second step of preparing to read, we need to assess our prior knowledge. We need to determine what we already know about a topic. So some of this might sound familiar, some of it might not. So that's what you have to determine, is how much do you know. If you don't know that much, it's your responsibility to take steps to increase your background knowledge. So you can do things like read parts of other material on the subject. You can consult reference books, and you can talk with someone who knows about stuff about the topic. Okay? So when we prepare to read, we're going to preview the material, we're going to assess our prior knowledge, and then next we're going to plan our reading and study time. And when I talked about in the syllabus video that planning is essential, and I do mean it. Okay? So when you take a look at, let's say, our next chapter, chapter 3, take a look at how many pages you have to read. Can you get that all read in one session, or do you have to break it up? Okay? It's okay if it's a bigger section and you think you have to break it up. You want to plan your time wisely. All right? So you're going to plan your study reading session, and you're going to follow that plan. All right? This will help you to determine when best to read, when your concentration is best. Okay? A lot of times, especially with the English classes where I have to grade essays that you guys write, I tend to try to grade first thing in the morning because for whatever reason my mind's more on task then than it is at 8 o'clock at night. So I try to grade when my brain is as focused as it can be. Alright, so those were the 3 steps to preparing to read. Okay, now step 2 of the study reading process, we're going to ask and answer questions to guide your reading. So you're going to create 1 or more questions from each section or paragraph. Then that will give you a specific purpose in reading. So you're going to read selectively and purposefully to answer those questions. The easiest way to create those questions is to turn headings or subheadings or vocabulary words into questions. But if you don't have any headings, you can look for terms in special print, and then look for questions throughout the chapter that the author has provided. Okay? So create those questions. And then as you read, you're going to answer those questions. Now the important thing to remember is that you're going to write down the answer to your questions after you finish reading a section. Okay? Don't stop in mid-sentence to go write down your answer. Okay? Make sure that you do it after you finish that paragraph. You can write your questions and answers on a separate sheet of paper. You can type them up, write them in the margins of your textbook, or even on note cards. Yes, you can write in your textbooks. You've bought them. They are yours, okay? And if we look at our textbook for page, I've got an example here, up on Cobra here. It's not for chapter 10, but it's for our next chapter, chapter 3. This is what my book looks like with annotations. So you can highlight, you can underline, but I'm not highlighting or underlining everything in the chapter. I'm being selective. Over here we have a term, so I've circled the term. In a lot of these other chapters, you're going to have a comprehension question to help you identify whatever we're talking about. So here I've put a question mark. So that's a little side note for me. Oh, that's the comprehension monitoring question. Okay? And so here in the side, I've written my little notes. And so that way, I've read this, I've taken my annotations, my notes, and then it's right before class, and I kind of really don't remember what I read. So I'm not going to reread the whole thing, I'm going to look at my notes. So here, this was the topic, the definition, aka it means subject or subject matters. Alright, why is it important? We've got 2 reasons, here they are. And here's my comprehension monitoring question for that. Okay? And then even though I've got he- headlines here, headings here. I put my own heading because this is what I'm going to look for first. So 4 clues to help you find the topic. Here's number 1, titles and headings. Okay? So that's just, think of your annotations and your notes as an outline for you later on so you don't have to reread everything. All right. And then any questions that aren't answered, those are great to bring to class discussions. And you're going to have professors who are very demanding in the fact that you have to participate. We'll bring those to class discussions. Actively seeking answers to questions encourages you to concentrate and focus on understanding as you read. Finally, the last step in the study reading process is you want to review by rehearsing your answers. So rehearse what you have learned immediately after reading it. Do it out loud. Or you can write them down from memory as well. But that rehearsing will help put it into your memory. So if you went back, did this with the chapter 10 pages, did all of this stuff, then you would be better prepared for if you came into class, if we were meeting in class, and I went over this PowerPoint. Okay, then as we go over the PowerPoint, you're going to take all the notes from the PowerPoint as well, and it's going to be added bonus for you to remember everything. All right, so that is what chapter 10 is about. It's about these steps and what to do before you read, while you read, and then after you read to help you remember and comprehend everything. Okay? So that is what chapter 10 is about. So there were the pages for chapter 10. That was the PowerPoint we just went over. Here's the example of that textbook page if you want to take a closer look at it. And then next go on to chapter 10, the review guide worksheet. And this will review all of those major concepts. Okay? So this is a Word document. You can go down here, download it if you have Word on your computer. If you don't, type it up into an email or such and email it to me. All right? If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will talk to you guys later.